That's yucky. That's really yucky. Good afternoon and welcome to another video with a guy and his projects. Today we're working on the 2004 Ford F-250 Super Duty 6.0 liter four-wheel drive, and we are changing some undercarriage fluids. So nothing overly exciting, but it's something that gets overlooked on almost every single high mileage vehicle I've bought. It looks like they've never had these fluids changed. So the fluids we're talking about is the front diff, the rear diff, and the transfer case. Very important fluids. They all have long life. I think they're typically recommended between 75,000 and 100,000 miles. So something you forget about very easily, something you just don't do, especially if you're not avid into your vehicle. So this truck, supposedly, the previous owner told me when I bought it, all the fluids had been gone through. He even gave me some leftover fluid on the gear oil. So I believe him, at least in the rear, because, well, he replaced the diff cover with a Banks. You'll see that in a minute. So I believe he replaced at least the rear. I don't know about the front or the transfer case. We're gonna do all three of them right now. You guys get to come along for that. And we're just gonna get it taken care of. With him putting the Banks rear end in, the Banks rear end cover, I should say, diff cover, we don't actually have to take that cover off. It's got a drain plug. We can drain it and fill it back up. The transfer case, we don't need to tear apart. We can drain it and fill it back up. The front diff, however, is stock. We're going to have to pull the cover off and reseal it. Not a huge ordeal, don't get scared. A little bit more involved in the rear with a drain plug, but nothing crazy. So, all right, so I bought some fluid. I bought a lot of fluid. I've got a lot of fluid in here. Usually this is full because I have diesel oil. I just did the oil change though, so that's there. I don't remember what I'm using for the transfer case. I'm gonna have to look up what I bought for that. I think it's gonna end up being one of these ATFs, I don't remember. But for the diff fluids, we have some 75W90. I'm doing Triax, Synergy, whatever the hell this is. We're doing that for the front. And we're doing, that's another 7590. Here we go. 75-140 for the rear, I believe. I think this is front rear. I'm gonna have to relook again. But I bought a bunch of this stuff. So I've got 2 gallons of each plus a gallon of 80W90. That goes in the 94 Grand Cherokee. But this weight goes in the Super Duty, the Nissan Titan, and the Expedition. So it's about a couple gallons worth. And ultimately we're gonna end up going through all 3 of those. And then eventually we'll go through the Jeeps as well. But right now we're doing the F-250. First step though is draining it, so let's get that done. All right guys, so under here, like I mentioned, we have the Banks rear diff cover. I have a 10mm or a 12mm drain bolt on the bottom here. So I'm just gonna do this. That's tightened, so we're gonna go loosen. And it's theoretically gonna drain right into my drain pan. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. We got hot in here, man. Definitely need to get an AC. Need to get a heater before winter. That's gonna be the big one. Oh, and I wasn't paying attention. I just made a mess, but whatever. Let me grab towels. Oops. But yeah, see this fluid? I don't know if it's gonna turn up on the video or not. Like I said, I didn't know. I was just assuming the guy knew what he was talking about when he said this was brand spanking new because he had just put this cover on. And yeah, that is very honey colored. It doesn't stink like super old fluidy from the diff does. That is actually brand new fluid, which is good. So technically I could put that plug back in and not waste my money, but we're just gonna do it so we know they're all at the same mileage. So the other thing you can do while that's draining is you can just look at the magnet on the end here and clean that up nice and neat. It's all cleaned up, ready to go back in. It's got a built-in washer on it. You know what, I might actually go on Banks' website, see if I can get a new one of those. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna go take our plug it back in. We're just gonna go until she's tight. She's right about there. So now you're gonna wanna have a clean sight glass. So Banks makes these so that you can actually see the level because, all right, so there's 2 ways to do this. Either one, you can just fill it from the Banks plug until you see it in the sight glass, Or two, you can go around to the rear plug on the, well, yeah, that's what you're gonna have to do if you don't have a Banks. So if you go around to the rear side, there's a plug right here. You'll pull that out and you fill it until the fluid starts dripping out the side. With the Banks, it doesn't really matter which way you go. This is a heck of a lot easier to access, so we're gonna do this, and we're just gonna go until we're about halfway through the sight glass as far as the fluid level goes. And we're gonna take our 75-140. We're gonna pull out this fluid pump, which I will link down below, of course, for you. And it comes with a couple of different extensions, so you can get to the bottom of whatever size you're using, bottle. And we're just gonna pump this in here. So important to note, if you're doing this on the ground, this hose is probably long enough. Because I'm doing it in the air, I'm gonna have to hold the bottle while I pump. Kind of dumb, considering I'm using the lift to make things easier, but whatever. All right, so now we're gonna need to pop that off. I'm guessing that's a 14 millimeter. So we're gonna put this on the bucket here, and that should give us enough reach and room. I'm gonna pull this plug out, put that right there. With this, we're just gonna take this hose, pump it in here, and start pumping away until we see the sight glass getting full. And here comes the fluid. It's clear. And this is the 75-140, by the way. So if you don't have the sight glass, you're gonna use the drain or the fill plug on that side. Like I said, just pump it in until the fluid starts coming out, about where you want it. This pump makes things so much easier. This is even easier than those squeeze pouches. I'm sold. This is nice. We're almost there. All right, so should be getting real close here, which is good because we're at 3 quarts. Oh, yep, okay, there we go. All right, so I don't know if you can see that, but the fluid level is right at halfway through the sight glass. That's it for the rear diff. Let's put the plug back on. So take our plug that in. All right, rear diff is done. Easy as that if you have the Banks cover. I don't know if Banks has an Amazon page, but I'll try and link this down below. Super helpful. Yukon has them as well. I have a Yukon front diff for the Jeep. I love that thing, but Banks is even better than Yukon in my opinion. So anywho, let's move on to, maybe we'll do transfer case next. All right, so for the transfer case, in my particular truck, you've got this skid plate in the way. And you can either unbolt it and not make a mess, or just say screw it and make a mess. We're gonna say screw it and make a mess. So, but it's a pretty simple one to do this. Here is your fill plug, here is your drain plug. Now, people will tell you, and we didn't do this in the rear with the rear diff for whatever reason, but people will tell you to always crack the fill plug first, just in case you crack the drain plug and can't get that open, then you're kind of stuck. I'm gonna say if you can't get that open, you're kind of stuck anyway, but that does give you time to go buy a new transfer case or figure something else out. So this is a H10. So loosen her up. Okay, so we know that one fits. Now we'll go to this one. Now be prepared with your drain pan with this skid plate. It looks like it's all gonna kind of drain here and set in this little crevice. We're just kind of dumb and drain out of here. In fact, that's really a real poor design, but I'm assuming they just want you to pull this off when you do fluid, so who knows. We're just gonna wing it and deal with the mess it creates, because I've been putting this off since I bought the truck. It's been in the back of my mind. And I just want to get it done today, so. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh no. Wow, that was a bad decision. Very bad decision. I was way wrong with where that was gonna splatter. So it came shooting out the front here and the back hole at the same time, and now I'm gonna have to clean that up. So maybe take the skid plate off. So the good news out of this is the fluid is really red, which means it's still good as well, which means the transfer case is doing just fine. Bear with me, I'm gonna clean this up. I'll be back. All right, so at this point, we'll go ahead and put that drain plug back in. Yes, it would be way easier just to unbolt the thing. I know. But I don't want to unbolt it. So to avoid that mess, you could either take this tray down or just crack your drain plug until the majority of the fluid is drained out this little hole in the back. or just make a mess and have a good laugh at yourself like I did. So I am putting in this Amsoil ATF. This is what Amsoil tells me that needs to go in. So that's what we're putting in. This is a 273 transfer case, in case everybody was wondering. Oh, manufactured in December 25th of 2003. Wow, this was manufactured on Christmas Day. So the next challenge is filling this without making another mess. You could use the same pump, or just to show you that you don't have to use a pump, I'm gonna use this funnel. See if that works. Essentially, you're just filling it until the fluid starts coming out the bottom of the fill hole. So, keeping that in mind, I'm gonna put a little towel down here since we just cleaned everything up. Now we're gonna, fuel tank, let's get plates in the way. Now I'm just gonna try and do this ever so gingerly. I believe this should take us about 2 quarts. Wow, I am making a huge mess today, guys. I'm having issues today. Oh my gosh, stop it. Today is not my day, boys. Oh! Alright, so for quart number 2, same story, only try not to spill as much on this go around. Alright, so it looks like today it's gonna be just over 2 quarts. Maybe it's because I spilled 1/4 of a quart down my arm and my elbow. Into my armpit. It's the new deodorant. So let's go ahead and get our 3rd quart, which it should not take very much of at all. A little bit more, here we go. And I think we're about there. Starting to come out the top. So yeah, I barely took any of that 3rd quart. So pretty much if you didn't spill a bunch, 2 quarts would probably be perfect. Now I'm just gonna take our plug. I'm gonna call that about tight. And that's tight. Okay, clean up our mess. Takes some of us longer than others, mainly because I made a big mess, man. All right, so moving on to the front diff. We do not have a drain plug on the front diff, which means, of course, which means we're gonna go ahead and take this whole differential cover off. Kind of annoying, and I really wish we didn't have to, but that just seems to be the way that life goes. And sometimes you gotta do what you have to do. So it would appear to be a 9/16 is what fits this. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna just break all of these loose around this diff cover. Preferably before we get this apart. And maybe what we should do is what we talked about earlier. And I should actually check that we can bust this fill port loose as well. So the only issue with this is we have a steering stabilizer in the way. Check out that video if you want to see it, me install that. And then this tie rod's in the way. You could disconnect it all, but it's not worth it. It's easier to work around it. Wow, so this is one of those cases where, okay, there it goes. All right, so we're able to bust this loose. Let's tighten it back up a little bit just so we don't have drippers. There we go. And now I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna bust all these loose, hopefully. There we go. Not taking these out, we're just loosening. All right, so we end up getting this one out with let's see what size this is. Looks like an 8mm. Did not wanna fit though. Does not wanna come out either. So now that we got these all loose, I'm just gonna go ahead and bust them all off. All right, so that's all of them except the top one and this one right here. So we're gonna go ahead and get our drain pan ready this time. Typically in my experience, these don't just fall off. You have to pry them off, but the way today's going, oof, friggin' knows, man. All right, grab our data plate. I'll go back on later with it. Somewhere to pry into. There it goes. Wow, okay, so noteworthy. Let me show you that. That's yucky. That's really yucky. All right, so I don't know what green fluid means, but I know it don't look good. So we're gonna go ahead and take this top bolt the rest of the way out now that the majority of the fluids come out. I'm gonna try not to drop the whole cover in there because so far that was actually clean. All right, we're gonna pull that out and try and gracefully pull the cover out. without making a mess. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I don't know what the green fluid signifies. Maybe there's a green fluid that's branded as green and that's what they put in there. I've never seen green fluid come out of a differential before, but that was very puke green colored. Maybe it's water. I know that I've gone through water crossings with a bad vent tube. So maybe that's my fault, I don't know. I've never seen green fluid though. Looks gross, but it's very green in there. I think you guys can see that. Looks like it's coming through on the camera all right. So anywho, we're going to go ahead and spray a bunch of brake clean in here and just try to clean out all of this fluid. But before we do that, I'm going to go in and I want to scrape all this away. I want to try and pull all this RTV out of the threads, and then we'll get some brake clean in here, and then we'll clean up the cover, and we'll continue on. All right, so for cleaning gasket surfaces, I bought these OEM Tool gasket scrapers. I really like them. They really work great. I'll link them in the description below. But it just makes really easy work of going through here and cleaning this stuff up. Yes, I know I'm getting gasket material inside the diff right now. No, I don't really care because I want to clean that out momentarily. So we're just gonna attempt to get all that out here right now. I'm gonna reach around behind because we got to spin this. Can't reach with the camera in my face. We're gonna just spin the drive shaft here. Spin it around a little bit. And spray again. Okay, once you're done, you got a little sump here. Once the fluid's done, you're gonna have to dry out that sump and get all that out. But that's about it for now. We're gonna work on the cover, come back, and we'll get it all installed. All right, guys, so same thing here. Pull your cover out of the trash, race through it. I'm going to use the same exact gasket scraper I used before. Ooh, look at that and clean it up. So while the brake clean on that dries, let's go check out our gasket maker situation. So you want to be careful with gear oil. Not all gasket makers are meant for gear oil, so buy some that actually is meant for gear oil. So we got 2 of these for gear oil. I'll probably use those. So this gasket maker is designed specifically for gear oil, which is what we want. We don't want this to leak later. We don't want the gear oil to eat its way through the gasket. We don't want none of that. So we're going to use actual gear oil. The problem, or not actual gear oil, actual gear oil gasket maker. The problem with this is that it's going to require 24 hours to cure before we can fill it back with fluids. You might be able to get away with doing that before then. You might not, don't know. We're gonna wait the 24 hours, but we're gonna get this set right now. And we're gonna do that by just taking a bead and going around the inside here. Next thing is we just got to put this in place and get the bolt covers in place without making a gigantic mess. Okay. Try not to get your RTV all over everything. Match it up. Put one in here. So I'm gonna do one top one and a bottom one just so I can let go of this thing. Put a couple more in, and then we're just gonna lightly tighten these all the way around. Tighten them as much as you can with your hands, but you're not torquing these down yet. You're just gonna get these in place, snug them, but don't torque them. So I wanna remove the fill port just so that the air can go out as I'm putting these together. Necessary or not, I don't know. That's what I'm doing. All right, so the instructions on this for drying says continuous blah 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 blah. Finger tighten bolts until material begins to squeeze out around flange. Allow to dry 1 hour, then tighten but to torque specifications. Allow 24 hours to fully cure. So according to the sources I'm finding on the Googling machine, We want to tighten these to 35 foot-pounds, which equates to like 420 inch-pounds. So we've got this set at 128 inch-pounds, and I'm just going to go through and clickety-click, click, 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 click all the way around. All right, now we wait until tomorrow afternoon and we fill the sucker back up. All right, guys, it has been as close to 24 hours as I care to wait. We're at about 22. 24 hours would be 1 o'clock. It is 11 o'clock right now, which is my lunchtime, and I want to go eat lunch, so I'm going to call 22 hours enough. Just going to pull out the drain plug. I mean, not the drain plug, the fill plug. All right, so just like on the rear, yes, I will link this down below, as well as the pump and everything else. All right, so just like the rear, we're gonna sit here and pump until it's full. We'll know it's full when it starts dripping out the fill hole. Holy smokes, we're coming up to 3 quarts. I did not think there's 3 quarts worth of room in here. Well, okay, yep. So I can see it hovering right here on the edge. So I'm gonna call that quits. That's like almost exactly 3 quarts, just a little bit under 3 quarts. Just gonna come clean up our little dribble mess here and put our plug back in. You could put some anti-seize on here if you wanted. I know a lot of people like to use Teflon. I usually just screw it in. I don't think I've ever had an issue. I'm torquing this to about 25 foot-pounds ultimately. Okay, there's 25. You're ready to go hit the roads? All right, guys, that's all there is to it. We just replaced the rear diff, the transfer case, and the front diff oil on this 2004 F250. The process should be same on pretty much all the Super Duties. The quantities might be a little bit different. Maybe the weights in your differentials should be very, 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 very similar. I will link all the products down below, the oils, all 3 different oils, the pump, and maybe even some diff covers. Like I said, I've got a Yukon diff cover for the front. I haven't put on the truck yet because I think I want it on the Jeep when I put those spare axles in. We've got the banks on the back. I don't know that they're on Amazon, but I'll throw something on there for you to check out anyway. So make sure you guys hit the thumbs up, the subscribe button, check out the videos, the playlist. I said that really weird. Check out the playlist. There's a ton of videos on the playlist. Also check out my links down below. I got that stuff linked, Amazon and PayPal and Zelle and all the good stuff if you feel so inclined. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.